Have you ever heard the phrase, wherever you get podcasts? Like in an ad when someone goes, you can listen to our show wherever you get podcasts. Believe it or not, that's not them being lazy, like, listen wherever you get podcasts, I don't care. Instead, whether they realize it or not, that is exactly what makes podcasts great. Because you can't say the same for most things. Like, you can't watch Severance wherever you watch TV shows. AnyMark did nothing wrong. Even YouTube videos, most things on the internet are bolted onto companies. But nobody owns the technology behind podcasts. That's because this is a podcast. This is actually my brother and me, but in its RSS form. And all an RSS file is just a list of the titles, descriptions, and MP3 files of a podcast. When RSS was invented in 1999, the idea was that it was a feed of content that you could let people follow, that you controlled, that you owned. Sure, it was simple, but you owned your feed, not some algorithm or some company that owned all your He's right behind me, isn't he? As a TechCrunch article from 2009 read, it's time to get completely off RSS and switch to Twitter. And nothing ever bad happened with Twitter, right? Right? And so went the way of the web. Except, for some reason, like the horseshoe crab of the internet, podcasts stayed simple. You don't have to make an account, you don't have to worry about algorithms. You just get the thing that you subscribed to get. Sure, a lot of people use Apple Podcasts and Spotify, but you don't have to. I use Pocket Cast. You can use anything as long as you have the link to the feed, you will get the show. Because nobody owns the technology behind podcasts. But just because that's how things are now does not mean that's how they will always be. Just last year, Google suddenly ended their Google Podcast app and instead suggested you use YouTube Music, where they just so happen to own and control a lot more of the environment. And last year, Spotify, the supposed advocate for podcasts, added an AI podcast to their Spotify Wrapped. So what can you do to keep the ecosystem healthy for the horseshoe crab of podcasting? Well, you can support independent shows and worker-owned networks like Max Fun, which... Oh, hey, what? That's my podcast. How did that get? Genuinely, though, years before we had a show, back in middle school when I was manually adding MP3s onto this bad boy, I have always loved podcasts. They have kept me sane through hellish jobs and lonely lunches, and I still keep my favorite ones ready for a great long road trip. So if you want to support our specific horseshoe crab and get a bunch of awesome bonus stuff as well, you can go to MaximumFun.org/join. Of all the things in this hellish tech landscape that we currently live in, this is something that I think is great and that I am proud of.